Kira Winters stood at the edge of Colony Dawn 7's observation deck, her calloused hands pressed against the reinforced glass as she studied the peculiar energy readings on her tablet. The massive dome above her head offered a clear view of the 3 moons of Kepler, 186F, their pale light casting long shadows across the colony's hydroponics gardens. "You're doing it again," a gruff voice called from behind her. Staring at those readings like they'll suddenly make sense. She turned to face Chief Security Officer Marcus Reynolds, his weathered face bearing the marks of 20 years of colonial service. The particle rifle strapped to his back had become as much a part of him as the colony's walls had become part of their lives. "The energy signatures are getting stronger, Marcus," Kira said, pushing a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face. "And they're not random. There's a pattern." Marcus joined her at the window, his boots echoing on the metal floor. At 58, he'd spent most of his life protecting the colony from threats both known and imagined. But lately, those threats had begun to feel more real. 3 more disappeared in the dark zone this week, he said quietly. Good people. Experienced scouts. The dark zone lay beyond the colony's eastern perimeter, a region where equipment malfunctioned and where the very air seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly presence. The colony's founders had marked it as forbidden territory, but necessity had pushed their boundaries closer to its edges over the decades. "The Council wants answers," Marcus continued. "They're talking about mounting a full expedition." Kira's fingers flew across her tablet, pulling up more data. "Look at this," she said, showing him the screen. "The energy peaks coincide with the disappearances. Whatever's out there, it's becoming more active." The colony's warning sirens chose that moment to blare to life, their haunting wail echoing through the observation deck. Marcus's hand instinctively went to his rifle, but Kira was already moving, her boots pounding against the floor as she ran toward the control center. The colony's heart was a maze of screens and holographic displays, most salvaged from the original landing ships or cobbled together from spare parts. Director James Chun, the colony's civilian leader, stood at the central console, his face illuminated by the red emergency lights. "Report," he demanded as Kira entered. "Multiple contacts," Lieutenant Raj Patel announced from his station, his dark eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "They're coming from the dark zone, moving fast." "Hostile?" Marcus asked, taking up position near the door. "Unknown," Raj replied. "But they're unlike anything we've seen before." Kira moved to her own station, fingers dancing across the controls. The colony's ancient sensors struggled to make sense of what they were seeing. "These readings. They're similar to the energy signatures I've been tracking, but magnified 1,000 times." "Show me," Director Chen ordered. A holographic display sprang to life in the center of the room, showing the dark zone's boundaries and the approaching anomalies. They moved like liquid mercury, flowing across the landscape with impossible speed. "Wait," Kira said, adjusting the sensors. "There's something else." A signal, broadcasting on all frequencies. Static filled the room's speakers, then resolved into a pattern of pulses and tones that made the hair on the back of Kira's neck stand up. It wasn't random noise, it was language. "Can you decode it?" Chen asked. "Working on it," Kira replied, her mind racing through years of training and experience. The colony's computers were old, but she had spent years upgrading them, preparing for a moment she wasn't sure would ever come. "There's something familiar about the pattern." The message suddenly cleared, and a voice filled the control room. Human, but with an accent none of them had heard in 8 decades. "Colony Dawn, 7. This is the Earth vessel Hyperion. Do you copy?" The control room fell silent. In 80 years, no signal from Earth had reached them. Many had assumed their homeworld was gone, destroyed in the resource wars that had led to the colony's founding. "It's a trick," Marcus said, his grip tightening on his rifle. "It has to be." But Kira was already checking the signal's origin. "No," she whispered. "It's real. And it's not coming from the dark zone. It's coming from orbit." Director Chen straightened his shoulders, years of leadership evident in his bearing. "Open a channel," he ordered. Kira's hands trembled as she worked the controls. "Channel open." Shin took a deep breath. This is Colony Dawn 7. We copy, Hyperion. The response was immediate. Thank God, the voice said. We've been searching for you for a long time. You need to prepare for immediate evacuation. What you've been seeing in the dark zone, it's not natural. They're coming, and we don't have much time. Who's coming? Shin demanded. The answer was lost in a burst of static as the colony's lights flickered and died. In the darkness, Kira's tablet showed the energy readings from the dark zone spiking off the charts. Multiple breaches in the outer perimeter. Rod shouted as emergency power came online. They're inside the colony. Marcus was already moving, coordinating with his security teams through his communicator. All units to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Kira watched in horror as new readings appeared on her screen. Whatever was coming from the dark zone, it was changing, evolving, becoming something else entirely. Director, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. I don't think they're here to talk. In the distance, screams echoed through the colony's corridors, accompanied by sounds no human throat could make. The last signal from Earth had come too late. The darkness had already arrived. In the chaos that followed, as Marcus's security teams engaged the unknown entities and evacuation protocols were initiated, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The truth about the Dark Zone, about why Earth had really come back after so long, was still out there, waiting to be discovered. And somewhere above them, the Earth vessel Hyperion prepared for a battle that had been 80 years in the making, while below, in the depths of the Dark Zone, ancient machines stirred to life, ready to fulfill their purpose at last. Captain Diana Zhang stood on the bridge of the Hyperion, watching as the massive ship broke through Kepler 186f's atmosphere. Behind her, 5 other Earth vessels descended in formation, their hulls gleaming in the alien sunlight. The colony below was already under siege, its outer walls breached in multiple locations. Status report, she commanded, her augmented eyes scanning tactical displays. Multiple hostile entities detected within the colony perimeter, Lieutenant Commander Jack Harrison reported from his station. They're evolving, Captain, adapting to our countermeasures in real time. Diana had seen this before on other lost colonies. The entities that emerged from what the colonists called the Dark Zone weren't just alien. They were something else entirely. Something that shouldn't exist in this universe. Launch drop ships, she ordered. Get our ground teams in there. Priority is securing the colony's central hub and retrieving their research data. The truth about why Earth had returned after 80 years would have to wait. Right now, survival took precedence. In Colony Dawn 7's engineering sector, Kira Winters worked frantically to restore power to the defensive systems. She'd managed to establish a secure channel with the Earth vessels, but the entities from the Dark Zone were systematically destroying their infrastructure. The primary core is failing, she reported to both Director Chun and the Earth fleet. We're running on backup power, but it won't last. Hold position, Captain Zhang's voice crackled through the comm. Our teams are incoming. Whatever happens, we need that research data. Marcus Reynolds and his security teams had established a defensive line around the colony's central hub, but they were losing ground. The entities had evolved beyond their initial Mercury-like state, taking forms that seemed to mock human anatomy while defying the laws of physics. They're testing us, he growled into his comm as another wave approached, learning from every engagement. The sky lit up as Earth drop ships pierced the clouds, their engines burning bright against the darkening sky. They landed in precise formation around the colony's perimeter, disgorging heavily armed troops in powered armor suits that made Marcus's weapons look primitive by comparison. A soldier in officer's armor approached Marcus's position, her helmet retracting to reveal a face marked with the same determination he saw in his own troops. Commander Olivia Reyes, she introduced herself. Earth Special Operations. We need to move fast. Where's your lead engineer? Before Marcus could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. From the direction of the Dark Zone, a sound like tearing metal echoed across the landscape. The entities attacking the colony suddenly froze, then began retreating. That's not good, Olivia muttered, checking readings on her armor's displays. Captain, are you seeing this? Affirmative, Diana's voice replied. The energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever they've been building in there, it's activating. In the engineering sector, Kira's instruments were showing impossible readings. The dark zone, it's not just a region of strange phenomena. It's something they built. Something they've been building for 80 years. Not building, Diana corrected. Growing. Using the colony's presence as a catalyst. We've seen it before on other worlds. They seed these zones, wait for humanity to arrive, then use our own technology and biology to create something new. What are they creating? Director Chen demanded. The answer came in the form of a massive structure rising from the dark zone, its surface shifting between states of matter like liquid metal frozen in time. It towered above the colony, reaching toward the stars with impossible geometries. A bridge, Diana said grimly. A way to bring something through from somewhere else. We've managed to stop them on other worlds, but never this far into the process. Kira studied the readings from both her colonial equipment and the more advanced Earth sensors. There was a pattern here, something familiar in the way the energy flowed. The colony's power grid, she said suddenly. They've been using it, tapping into it all these years. That's why they let us stay, let us build. We've been powering their project without knowing it. Can we shut it down? Olivia asked. Better, Kira replied, her fingers flying across her console. We can reverse it. Diana caught on immediately. You want to use their own technology against them? That's never been done before. We've never had 80 years of integrated colonial tech before, Kira countered. Our systems have evolved alongside their project. We're not just connected to it, we're part of it. Marcus stepped forward. Whatever we're doing, we need to do it fast. Look, the entities have begun to gather around the tower, their forms merging and growing into something vast and terrible. The air itself seemed to bend around them, reality straining at their presence. Do it, Director Chen ordered. Full power to engineering. Kira initiated the sequence, channeling every bit of power the colony had left into a feedback loop aimed at the tower. Earth ships added their own energy following her lead. The tower began to pulse with light, its surface rippling like water. The entities surrounding it writhed in what might have been agony, their combined forms starting to break apart. It's working, Kira shouted over the growing roar. The gateway is collapsing. All units, fall back to defensive positions, Olivia commanded. This is going to get rough. The tower's collapse began slowly, then accelerated with devastating force. It imploded, taking the entities with it, pulling them back through their own gateway. The dark zone itself seemed to fold inward, reality rushing in to fill the void. When it was over, the colony stood in silence. Where the dark zone had been, only empty terrain remained, scoured clean by forces beyond human understanding. Status report, Diana's voice came through clearer now, the interference gone. Colonial systems returning to normal, Kira reported, hardly believing what her instruments were telling her. The anomalies, they're gone. Marcus surveyed the damage from his position. We've got wounded, but we're alive. More than I expected an hour ago. In orbit, Diana allowed herself a small smile. Well done, Colony Dawn 7. Now, I believe we have 80 years of catching up to do. Director Chen looked out over his damaged but surviving colony. Yes, Captain, we do. Starting with why Earth really came back after all this time. Kira turned from her console to face the others. The integration of colonial and Earth technology had done more than save them. It had shown them a path forward. Their isolation had forced them to adapt, to create hybrid systems that could interact with alien technology in ways pure Earth tech never could. Maybe that's why, she said quietly. Maybe we're not just survivors anymore. Maybe we're the next step. As Earth's ships settled into orbit and recovery operations began, the colonists of Dawn 7 began to understand that their 80 years of isolation hadn't been a punishment or a mistake. It had been a crucible, forging them into something new, a bridge between Earth's past and humanity's future among the stars. The last signal from Earth hadn't just been a warning or a rescue. It had been a recognition that humanity's future would be built not just on Earth's steel, but on the innovations of those who had been left to fall. only to rise stronger than ever. 3 months after the destruction of the Dark Zone, Colony Dawn 7 had transformed. The integration of Earth technology with colonial innovations had created something entirely new. Prefabricated structures from the Earth fleet now stood alongside the colony's original buildings, their sleek lines contrasting with the weathered architecture of 8 decades of isolation. Dr. Nathan Pierce, the Earth fleet's lead xenotechnologist, stood in the newly constructed research facility, examining the hybrid systems Kira Winters had helped design. At 35, he'd studied alien technology across 3 star systems, but nothing quite like this. The colonial systems aren't just compatible with the alien tech, he explained to the gathered team. They've evolved to mirror it, like technological convergent evolution. Kira nodded, pointing to the holographic display showing the colony's power grid. We didn't just survive here, we adapted. Every repair, every jury-rigged solution, pushed our technology in new directions. Directions that might help us find the others, Captain Diana Zhang added, entering the lab. Dark circles under her augmented eyes betrayed sleepless nights spent coordinating with Earth Command. The others were the 23 colonies still unaccounted for. Earth had found only a handful so far, each facing their own versions of the entities that had plagued Dawn 7. Some had already fallen. Others were still fighting. Commander Olivia Reyes joined them, her powered armor exchanged for a standard uniform. We've completed the integration of the colonial defense grid with our systems. Marcus's security teams are training with the new equipment now. And the anomalies? Diana asked. Still appearing at the edge of our sensor range, Nathan replied, pulling up another display. But they're different now. Less coherent. Almost like echoes. The destruction of the Dark Zone had left its mark on reality. Strange phenomena continued to manifest in the surrounding territory. Ghostly apparitions of alien architecture, temporary areas of altered physics, and fragments of the entities that had once threatened them. They're not just echoes, Kira said quietly. They're trying to rebuild. In the colony's new command center, Director Chun met with the Council and Earth representatives. The room's walls displayed real-time data from both colonial and Earth sensors, painting a picture of their surrounding space in unprecedented detail. The entities weren't just building here, Lieutenant Commander Harrison explained, highlighting various sectors on the display. They seeded these zones across multiple star systems, each one developing differently based on the local conditions and the colonies they encountered. Marcus Reynolds studied the tactical overlays, decades of security experience giving him a unique perspective. They were experimenting, testing different approaches, seeing how we'd react, and learning from each attempt, added Dr. Veronica Torres, the fleet's xenobiologist. Her dark hair was streaked with premature gray, evidence of years studying the psychological toll of isolation on colonial populations. The question is, learning for what purpose? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the engineering sector, where colonial and Earth technology merged most completely, junior technician Wei Chong noticed something odd in the power fluctuations. The patterns, he said, calling up historical data. They're not random. Even now, after the Dark Zone's destruction, they're maintaining a rhythm. Kira and Nathan rushed to verify his findings. The young technician was right. There was a subtle but distinct pattern to the energy flows, one that matched frequencies detected in other colonial systems. It's a network, Nathan breathed, his eyes wide. The Dark Zones weren't just invasion points. They were nodes in a vast communication system. And we just knocked out a major hub, Kira added, understanding dawning. That's why the echoes persist. The network is trying to rebuild itself, to restore the lost connection. Captain Zhang immediately grasped the implications. If we can understand this network, we might be able to locate the other colonies. Maybe even prevent more Dark Zones from forming. But Director Chin, with 80 years of colonial caution, saw another possibility. Or we might attract attention from whatever's on the other end of that network. Something that's now aware of exactly what we can do. The discussion was interrupted by urgent reports from the outer sensor posts. The echoes were changing, coalescing into more solid forms. This time, They weren't just mimicking human technology, they were incorporating it. Full alert, Diana commanded. All stations, battle positions. As klaxons sounded throughout the colony, Kira realized something that sent chills down her spine. The hybrid systems, they're not just letting us interact with their technology. They're letting them interact with ours. The entities that emerged from the echoes were different from their predecessors. Where before they had been alien and incomprehensible, these new forms showed disturbing signs of human influence. They moved with purpose, used recognizable tactics, and worst of all, seemed to understand exactly how the colony's defenses worked. They're evolving again, Olivia reported from the front lines. But this time, they're evolving with us. In the research lab, Nathan and Kira worked frantically to understand what was happening. The hybrid systems they'd been so proud of had become a double-edged sword, giving them unprecedented access to alien technology while simultaneously allowing that technology to learn from them. We need to shut it down, Marcus argued. Sever all connections to the hybrid systems. We can't, Kira countered. The colony's too integrated now. Without the hybrid systems, we lose everything: power, defense, life support. Director Chen's voice came over the calm despite the crisis. Then we use it. If they can learn from us, we can learn from them. We've done it before. Captain Zhang agreed. He's right. Dawn. 7 survived 80 years by adapting. Now we adapt again. As the new entities pressed their attack, the colony's defenders fell back to prepared positions. But this time, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for understanding, for the chance to unlock secrets that could save not just their colony, but all of humanity. The legacy of Colony Dawn 7 had evolved beyond mere survival. They had become a bridge between worlds, between technologies, between ways of thinking. And as the battle for their future began anew, they faced it not with fear, but with determination. For in the endless night of space, they had learned that the greatest strength wasn't in isolation or in unity alone, but in the wisdom to know when to stand apart and when to stand together. And in that wisdom lay the key to humanity's future among the stars. The holographic chamber deep within Colony Dawn 7's new research complex hummed with energy as Dr. Nathan Pierce and Kira Winters studied the three-dimensional map of known dark zone locations. Each point of light represented a colony, connected by threads of ethereal energy, the network they discovered linking these mysterious alien constructs across space. There's a pattern here, Lieutenant Commander Ryoko Tanaka said, her cybernetic interface allowing her to process the data streams at unprecedented speeds. The Earth Fleet's tactical specialist had arrived with the latest reinforcements, bringing expertise in pattern recognition that proved invaluable. The network isn't just connecting the dark zones, she continued, manipulating the display. It's creating something larger. Look at the geometric arrangement. The hologram shifted, points of light rearranging themselves into a complex three-dimensional lattice. At its center, a void took shape, a space deliberately left empty. A heart of darkness, Wei Chong murmured from his console. The young technician had proven himself invaluable in understanding the hybrid system's behavior. Or maybe a doorway, Kira finished. They're building a gate big enough to span between galaxies. In the command center, Captain Diana Zhang received the analysis with grim determination. The defensive line around Colony Dawn 7 had held against the evolved entities, but each engagement revealed new adaptations, new strategies that blended alien unpredictability with human tactical thinking. How long? She asked, addressing the assembled leadership. Dr. Veronica Torres consulted her data. Based on the rate of technological assimilation we're observing, I'd estimate 3 months before they achieve full integration with our systems. After that, they won't need the network, Director Chen concluded. They'll have evolved beyond it. Marcus Reynolds, his face bearing fresh scars from the latest defensive action, studied the tactical displays. The entities aren't just attacking anymore. They're testing boundaries, probing for weaknesses. Like they're preparing for something bigger. Because they are, Commander Olivia Reyes interjected, entering with fresh intel. We've decoded more of the network's signal patterns. The dark zones weren't just observation posts or invasion points. They were incubators. Incubators for what? Shen demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Xavier Blackwell, the fleet's quantum physicist, burst into the command center, his usually composed demeanor shattered by excitement or fear. It was hard to tell which. A new form of life, he announced, pulling up his findings on the main display. The entities, the network, the hybrid technology, it's all part of an evolutionary experiment. They're trying to create a species that can exist in multiple realities simultaneously. The implications stunned the room into silence. It was Kira who finally spoke, her engineer's mind racing ahead to the logical conclusion. That's why they needed our colonies, she said. They needed to understand how biological life adapts to isolation, to extreme conditions. They needed to learn how we change. And now they're ready for the final stage, Nathan added. The void at the center of the network, it's not just a doorway between galaxies. It's a spawning ground for something that could rewrite the laws of reality itself. Captain Zhang's augmented eyes flickered as she processed the information. Options. We fight, Marcus said immediately. We've held them back before. No, Kira countered, stepping forward. We don't fight. We complete the experiment. Have you lost your mind? Olivia demanded. But Nathan was already nodding, understanding dawning. The hybrid systems, the way we've adapted their technology, we're part of the experiment now. Maybe we always were. And we can guide it, Wei added excitedly. The network responds to our technology as much as we respond to theirs. We're not just subjects anymore, we're participants. Director Chun turned to Dr. Torres. The psychological impact. Enormous, she admitted. But we've been preparing for something like this for generations. Every colony that survived did so by adapting, by becoming something new. Maybe this is what we were becoming all along. The decision wasn't easy. Earth Command argued for containment, for destroying the network before it could achieve its goal. But the colonists of Dawn 7, led by those who had lived through 80 years of isolation and change, saw another path. Working with the hybrid systems, they began to reshape the network, not to destroy it, but to guide its evolution. The entities, recognizing the change, ceased their attacks. Instead, they began to cooperate, sharing knowledge that had been gathered across millennia of observation. 3 months later, when the void at the network's heart finally opened, what emerged wasn't the reality-shattering horror they had feared. Instead, it was something new, a bridge between human consciousness and alien understanding, between physical reality and the quantum realm. The colonial hybrid technology had done more than just adapt to alien systems. It had created a new path of evolution, one that preserved human identity while expanding the very definition of what it meant to be human. Standing in the observation dome, watching the new form of existence take shape in the space above Colony Dawn 7, Kira felt a profound sense of completion. The last signal from Earth hadn't just brought rescue, it had brought destiny. We were never meant to just survive in space, she said to Nathan, who stood beside her. We were meant to become something more. Not just us, he replied, gesturing to where the entity human hybrids now worked alongside colonial scientists, their form shifting between states of matter as naturally as breathing. All of us. Every species, every form of life that's willing to change, to grow. In the command center, Captain Zhang received the final reports from Earth Command. The other colonies were being contacted, the network's true purpose revealed. Some would choose to remain as they were, maintaining their current form of existence. Others would embrace the change, joining Dawn 7 in the next step of cosmic evolution. Was this their plan all along? Director Chen wondered aloud. To guide us to this point. Does it matter? Marcus asked, watching his security teams train alongside hybrid beings that just months ago they had fought as enemies. We chose our own path. We made our own future. As the sun set on Colony Dawn 7, casting long shadows across its transformed landscape, the last signal continued to echo through the network. But now it carried a different message, not a warning of extinction, but a promise of transformation. For in the endless depths of space, humanity had found more than just survival. They had found transcendence, and with it, a future as infinite as the stars themselves. 1 year after the transformation of Colony Dawn 7, the settlement had become something beyond its founders' wildest dreams. Quantum architecture spiraled into impossible geometries, buildings that existed in multiple states simultaneously, yet remained perfectly functional for both traditional humans and the new hybrid beings. Professor Zara Patel, Earth's leading expert in post-human sociology, stood in what had once been the colony's main square. At 42, she had dedicated her life to studying how humanity adapted to extreme conditions. But nothing had prepared her for this. Fascinating, she murmured, watching a group of children playing with a hybrid entity. The being shifted its form to create elaborate playground structures, its consciousness perfectly attuned to the children's desires and safety needs. They show no fear, no hesitation. Children adapt faster than adults, said Harmony, a hybrid who had once been Dr. Jessica Chun, Director Chen's daughter. Her form flickered between human appearance and something more abstract, like starlight given consciousness. They don't carry our preconceptions. In the new research nexus, which existed partially in normal space and partially in what they now called the quantum realm, Lieutenant Commander Ryoko Tanaka worked with Wei Chang on expanding the network's capabilities. Their hybrid technology had evolved far beyond its original parameters. We're receiving signals from the Andromeda Galaxy, Wei announced, his eyes wide with excitement. The network extends far beyond what we initially thought. Not just signals, Ryoko corrected, her cybernetic interface now seamlessly merged with hybrid systems. They're invitations. Other species that have undergone similar transformations. We're not alone in this evolution. General Diana Zhang, promoted after the events of the past year, arrived through a quantum corridor, a new form of transportation that utilized the space between realities. Her augmented eyes had been replaced with hybrid sensors that could perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously. Earth Command is still struggling to accept the scale of what's happening, she said, her form remaining stubbornly human by choice. Some colonies are embracing the change like Dawn 7. Others are resistant, fearful. Fear is a natural response to transformation, came the collective voice of the Entity Council, a gathering of hybrid beings that helped guide the integration of human and quantum existence. Their shared consciousness appeared as a shifting aurora of light and thought. Dr. Nathan Pierce, now leading the Hybrid Integration Project, emerged from a quantum computation session. His consciousness could now split between his human form and the quantum realm, allowing him to process information in ways that would have been impossible a year ago. We've discovered something remarkable in the deep network archives, he announced. The entities didn't just choose Earth randomly. They've been guiding species across multiple galaxies toward this evolution for millions of years. Hero Winters, who had become something of a bridge between traditional humans and hybrids, nodded thoughtfully. Her own transformation had been gradual, maintaining her human essence while embracing new forms of existence. It makes sense, she said. The universe isn't just about survival of the fittest. It's about transcendence, about life finding new ways to exist and understand itself. In the quantum observation deck, Marcus Reynolds remained stubbornly human, though his security teams now included both traditional and hybrid members. He watched as a group of newly arrived Earth scientists underwent their first transformation, their consciousness expanding into the quantum realm while their physical forms learned to exist in multiple states. Still can't get used to it, he muttered. You don't have to, Harmony assured him, her form solidifying briefly to place a hand on his shoulder. That's the beauty of what we've become. Every form of existence has its place. The transformation had brought challenges as well as wonders. The colony had to develop new forms of governance that could account for beings that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Traditional concepts of resources, space, and even time had to be reconsidered. Professor Patel documented these changes meticulously. It's not just about physical or mental evolution, she explained to a group of Earth observers. It's about the evolution of society itself. We're learning to exist in a state of perpetual change while maintaining our essential humanity. In the quantum nursery, where new hybrid consciousnesses were born or transformed, Dr. Veronica Torres worked with both human and hybrid children. The youngest generation was developing abilities that even the first hybrids hadn't imagined possible. They're not just combining human and quantum existence, she reported. They're creating entirely new forms of consciousness. Each child is a universe of potential. As the sun set on Colony Dawn 7, casting light that refracted through multiple dimensions, the Entity Council gathered for a historic announcement. They had detected signals from the center of the galaxy, more ancient species reaching out to welcome humanity into a cosmic community of evolved beings. We stand at a crossroads, General Zhang addressed the assembled colony. Not just Dawn 7, not just humanity, but all sentient life. The universe is vaster and more varied than we ever imagined, and our evolution has only begun. Kira, standing with Nathan and Wei at the quantum barrier where normal space met the infinite, felt a deep sense of purpose. The last signal that had warned them of the entities hadn't been an ending, but a beginning. Humanity hadn't just survived among the stars, they had learned to become them. As night fell across the colony, the quantum realm blazed with new possibilities. In the space between moments, between realities, the children of Dawn 7 dreamed in multiple dimensions, their consciousness expanding across the cosmos. They were the first generation of a new kind of humanity, one that could dance between stars and swim in the quantum foam of reality itself. The last signal had become a first note in a cosmic symphony, and humanity was learning to sing along with the music of the spheres. Beyond the void lay not darkness, but infinite light, and Dawn 7 was leading the way toward a future where the very concept of limits had ceased to exist. For in the end, the greatest frontier wasn't space or time or even reality itself. It was the boundless potential of consciousness to grow, to change, and to transcend its own understanding of what was possible.